Welcome to BeerNet Radio. Listen to on every continent except Antarctica. BEER.NET.
Beer.
BeerNet Radio.
Taking this call from Leslie's office today, so
How does she feel about that?
not crazy about it.
Yeah.
But
You just tell her, you just say, hey, I'm the man of this family. Do you go busting in, like stomping around, like, I'm the man. I'm the father.
that usually works out pretty well for me.
So, well, I wanted to thank you for coming to Johnny's reception last week. That was real nice of you, and it was good to have you there. So, old friend Johnny Gillis, who was a former distributor here in San Antonio, GLI Distributing, passed away a couple of months ago unexpectedly, and so we decided to join with Tim Campion, former GM at GLI, and put together a reception for the beer industry people in San Antonio and South Texas to honor Johnny. And we rented out the Cowboys Dance Hall and got some of the beers that Johnny loved, Dos Equis and Guinness and Lone Star being the main three, and played some music, showed some slides, and boy, it was the creme de la creme of South Texas beer guys, right, Jordan? You met some old codgers, didn't you?
That's right. I got to meet a lot of people I've heard about for a long time. Thought they were just made up because had never seen them around ever, and then and then they came out of the woodwork for Johnny, and it was under unfortunate circumstances, but it really was a celebration, and I think it lifted everybody's spirits, and just a lot of old stories and beer drinking and just good times.
Yeah, I saw that you had some FaceTime with Jimmy Gibson. So Jimmy was the beer buyer for Valero for many years, and so very powerful in Texas especially, and but he used to work. He got his start in the business working for actually my father in Houston back at Apache Beverage in the 70s. And he had some stories, but, he didn't want to talk about me, or, he just still thinks of me as a kid.
But no, it was funny because all his stories were about your dad. And that was, I think, the first person I've ever kind of encountered in the industry that didn't really talk about you at all, but your dad. So that was fun. And he was just one of those guys that could rattle story after story after story. Like he'd wait for you to laugh at that first one, and then as soon as the laughter died down, oh, let me tell you about this time. I mean, just all night, automatic. He was an interesting cat.
He is. And, I think it's a testament to Johnny and Tim at GLI that they kept Lone Star. They kept more Lone Star facings on the shelves at Valero way longer than it deserved to be, if you know what I mean, because of their relationship. And throw Willard Mercier in the mix there too, who worked for Pabst for many years. There were some folks from Pabst there, which was nice, and there were some folks from Glazier's that was real nice. And in fact, Glazier's paid for part of the tab before they left, and that was they didn't have to do that. They were competitors, but very gracious. All right.
We got some serious technical difficulties going down, Harry.
What's happening, JB and Bump, is do you have two mics going over there, two computers?
Yeah, now we're good.
Okay,
got off of that one. We're on one now.
There you go.
Should we get on the other side?
Where are you guys? Looks like y'all are in a pretty nice spot.
Long Island Sound.
Oh, nice.
Bumpy's Beach House.
We have JB Shireman and Bump Williams here. Biscuit and I welcome you to BeerNet Radio, the podcast where dreams really do come true. Thank you, JB and Bump, for being here. And I'm going to ask an initial question and then hand it off to Jen. But tell us first about this new combination that you guys have announced between Bump Williams Consulting and Arlington Capital. Is that not public yet?
Yeah, no, Bump and I've obviously been longtime friends and fly fishing buddies, and have done a lot of work together over the years. But Bump obviously has a ton of experience at retail. His son Dave has a lot of analytical experience across all CPG stuff. I had done most of my work on the supplier side, and Ryan, my coworker at Arlington, he's done a lot of lending into the distribution tier, and we're pretty good at structuring things on family businesses. And we just kind of all kept talking about, how crazy it is these days and the changes in the industry that are being wrought by the consumer, and how we thought that was going to affect that middle tier over the next few years. And it just seemed kind of like a natural thing for us to gravitate into. So we're pretty psyched about it.
Yeah, that's a great summary. We we work across every single tier, from the time a seed goes in the ground till someone ends up drinking it and enjoying a beverage. And we've got a pretty good bench strength of analytics and retail and distributor and consumer manufacturers. JB and his team have got a phenomenal bench strength of areas of expertise that complement our company. And like JB said, we've been friends for a long time. We just thought it'd be a good idea to kind of put our forces together and improve our value and improve our insights and improve our partnerships with everybody who we deal with. And it's not like we haven't worked together in the past. All my clients JB's been involved with, a number of his clients we get called in to provide some insights and analytics on. So it just made strength. And I think the thing that JB said was the future landscape is so, I don't know, it's so fragile right now. It changes so quickly that we thought we could be better partners to our customers together than we could if we did them individually. So hopefully that makes sense to you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're right. It is changing, and it is more complex. And I've been really impressed with Dave and BK. When they've been on our podcast and others, they have a really good grasp. It's one thing to aggregate the data. It's another thing to actually look at it and make it mean something. And they're really good at connecting the dots. And so it's hard to get young people in your companies that are smarter than you are. And,
it's easy for me.
It's really easy for me, Harry.
Well, it's been very difficult for me, but I've pulled it off as well. Right, Jen and Jordan?
Ha. Yeah.
You took the words out of my mouth, Jordan.
Thanks for the kind words, though, about BK and David, and obviously Ryan Blake on JB's side.
Yeah.
I know that they enjoy talking to you and working with you, and said that you and Jen and Jordan ask some of the best questions that they ever get asked. And that's a compliment to you guys on how well you know the industry. So thank you for
I appreciate it. It's because we're curious, I get more and more curious because I understand less and less, and you would think the opposite would be true, but the older I get, the less I realize I don't know. So, Jen, why don't we?
Harry, you did say something that was interesting, though. Everybody has basically access to the same data. Everybody's looking at Nielsen, everybody's looking at IRI, whatever it is. But I think what's been interesting is you put the four of us and our coworkers together, and we have a lot of background about what the data means. Why is it look this way, and what is it going to look like in the future? And I think it's those insights collectively that we offer that kind of sets us apart a little bit from some of the other things going on out there. So we'll see if that proves true. We've been pretty happy with the people. We obviously know a lot of people in the industry, and we pressure tested this thesis with them. And, we were talking about earlier, I would say people have been, very supportive and very excited for us to get into this space. We have some good traction so far, so we're pretty excited.
Good. Cool.
Nice. So before I start firing away, I have to say, and I think we've said this before, Bump, if you close your eyes when you hear Dave talk, it's like talking to you. He sounds exactly like you. It's like uncanny. So you trained him well.
Only he's smarter, right? That's all. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's no question.
Sure.
He was going to join us today, but he didn't shave, so we didn't let him join the podcast. But
oh man,
hey, if he gets rid of that porn stash, I won't have him on the podcast anymore.
So you know where that came from. So Junior and I are playing on the same men's senior baseball team, and we were having a wicked slump, a bad. So I think we went 5 games in a row and lost everything. David started to grow up. What'd you call it, Harry? A porn stash?
Yeah.
Okay. David started to grow a porn stash, and when he came to the game with the beginnings of his porn stash, we won, and then he won again, and we won 3 in a row. And then the rest of the team grew their 1970s Oakland A's porn stashes, and we won 7 or 8 in a row. And so,
is it intimidation, or what do you think this is? It's a very intimidating.
I think the other teams were laughing so hard at some of those wisps that were coming in that they took their eye off the ball. But that's where it started from. And when you got a streak going, anybody that knows about superstitions, you don't break a streak. And so that's where David is. But David's got a really good stash right now. He's going to start handlebarring it pretty soon. But the rest of the stuff, the HGA is coming his way. So
listen, winter's coming. And so I'm gonna do some facial hair gymnastics as well come autumn, and I'm gonna leave it as a surprise because we want people to tune back in to Beer Net Radio and check it out. But yeah, there's gonna be some things happening to this moneymaker right here.
Hey, I'm gonna see you in Kansas City in a couple of weeks, right?
Yes, yeah, okay. I'll be there.
I'm looking forward to the new look then.
Yeah.
Nice. Me too. I'm Hispanic and Italian, so I can participate too. I promise.
Oh, whatever, Jen. You do not have facial hair.
Yes, I do. Anyway, on that note, so guys, let's ask some, macro trends and big ideas. You were talking about how the landscape is changing in the next few years. Part of the reason you guys are tying up together, and I'm just curious what you guys think are, say, like the top 3 seismic things we will see different about our industry in the next, say, half decade. Is it cannabis? Is it big soda? Is it non-alc taking over? Is it the way we shop? What are those biggest changes?
Go ahead, buddy. So the top 3 you're asking for, let's go back to the basics of that one, Jen. Number 1 is we could tell you what we think is going to happen, and we will tell you, but to us, it goes back to what the consumer wants to buy on the shelves. Okay, so if I'm a manufacturer, whether it's beer, wine, spirits,
that's JB's line.
Which part?
You're the consumer. Follow the consumer.
This is why we're such good partners.
It makes sense.
Can
I just say one thing? And I know this podcast isn't about me, but it inevitably ends up. We've been trying to tell people to drink beer for 10 years. Here's to beer, beers to that. Oh my God, beer. When in reality, what we should have been doing, what we ended up doing, is just giving them what they want. They didn't want beer; they wanted hard seltzer and canned cocktails. And so you're right. You gotta give them what they want. You can't tell them what they want.
Correct.
So go ahead. So that's just my rant.
Yeah, but Harry, I mean, your name is on the door here, so you can say whatever you want to, and it goes a long way. But so we look at consumers, and whether it's from retailer loyalty card data or surveys that we do, or we look at how people shop in a store, the couple of things that we see going on. Number 1 is if it's flavors, game on. Number 1, flavors is game on. Bucket number 2 for us, for me anyway, it's almost split in 2. You've got folks that want higher octane, whether it's spirits based or whether it's a higher ABV beer. We want higher octane. And then you've got another bucket, the other split in the road, where consumers are more concerned about health and wellness and low carbs, low calorie, low this, low that, no alcohol. We're seeing that take off. So it's a bifurcation of this industry, and somewhere in the middle are where people are going to start to get squeezed out of shelf space. And then the third thing, Jen, cannabis, that's big. Packaging, whether it's single serve, 19.2s, that's huge too. But I think the third biggest change that's going to happen, that's going to impact our business, it's a toss-up between legislative changes or the huge increase in mergers and acquisitions that are going to go on in this business. And I'm not talking just beer on beer or wine on wine or spirits on spirits or soda on anything else. I'm talking about a blurring of these mergers and acquisition partners, not acquisitions, but partners, because we're going to see more, I think, of a partnership across these lines of soda, juices, health and wellness, teas, beer, spirits, wine. We've already seen it happening. And I think it's going to escalate at a fairly rapid rate.
And cross tier as well, or more cross CPG?
So when you say cross tiers, do you mean the 3-tier system we talk about?
Yeah.
So let's take each one of those a piece at a time. I don't know how much more consolidation can go on at the retail level. I don't know that. Okay. I think you're going to see stores like a Buc-ee's start to look like more like a supermarket than they are a convenience store. Or you're going to see a 7-Eleven or an H-E-B look more like a destination area. I think you're going to see that. In terms of consolidation there, I don't know how much more is going to go on there. Manufacturer, absolutely. And you're going to see that across all the different CPG areas. I mean, we know from the work that we do collectively that if we simply think from a beer perspective only, we're shutting out a vast majority of people who drink beverages. Yeah. So whether it's juices or teas or isotonics are better for you, that's going to change. Hard soda, like with the hard Mountain Dew. Mm-hmm. And then the distributor level, the answer to me is, yeah, there's going to be a lot more consolidation there. I think at an accelerated rate. JB and I do a lot of talking about this because you've got a portfolio that is constantly evolving. How do we structure our portfolio so that we are meeting the customer's needs tomorrow? We've got ownerships, we've got a staff, GMs and staff and family members coming in. Maybe you don't want to be part of the game anymore. Maybe their portfolio isn't where it's got to be. Maybe they're a prime target for a partnership or an acquisition or to sell. So that's the way I look at the 3 tiers in terms of an M&A world. I think it's going to accelerate at a fairly good clip, or we wouldn't be doing this.
Mm-hmm, right. I think you'll see people are starting to react more now to where the consumer is going. They're starting to realize they're not just in the soda business. I'm not in the wine business. I'm not in the beer business. I'm in the beverage business. And the consumer drinks multiple types of beverages every day. And we've said this a lot. They're in control, and we're seeing the output of their control. For years now, we've talked about what will the impact be of Gen X, Y, Z, and the numbers of them, and the millennials, and how they grew up. And now we're actually seeing those impacts, and whether it be from them deciding that something is just as nonsensical as, why can't I buy my wine at the grocery store in this state when I could in the state I used to live in? Well, guess what? Let's just put it on the ballot, get enough signatures, and we'll change it. So I just think you really can't underestimate the amount of influence that they're going to have. And I think a lot of people are starting to wake up and see that. And by not participating in this space, they're going to lose a lot of share for sheer nature of lack of shooting back. And the prize is just too big.
Am I hearing kind of that you guys think that consumer-driven equivalency efforts are almost inevitable in terms of channels, maybe not taxes, but channel sales?
Bump and I were talking about this morning. I mean, I kind of think it is. I don't know. And I'm not talking about equivalency and tax and politics and legislation, but it is a little bit nonsensical, I think, to a lot of these people. And gas prices the way they are right now. It's like, I got to go here to get my beer, but I got to drive across town to get my bottle of Tito's or whatever it is. I just don't think it makes sense to them. And these people read labels like nobody's business. They know more about the products they're drinking than anybody else's business. And it's like, wait a minute, there's a 12% beer here, but I can't get my 6% RTD because it has vodka in it. It's just, I just think these things are kind of head scratchers to them. And I think they like things the way they like it. And they sort of bend the world to their will. It seems they're very powerful influence, and I don't think they're going away.
I'm going to add on to that one a little bit. And it's all about, JB and I are both very, very strong proponents of the 3-tier system. Make no mistake about
100%.
that. Yeah, it's just the best in the business. Why do you think so many non-alcoholic companies, brands, or new innovation, or companies that are just starting to sprout, I need to get my product out to retail? Why do you think they select the beer distribution network to be their partner? Because they know how well these people execute when it comes to merchandising or packing out or delivery or making sure that they know where every box of liquid is. And they know the beer distributors, they know the consumer better than anybody else, better than the data I look at. They because they're in the stores every single day. They know the retailers. They talk to the retailers about alignment of where do you want to go and where do you see this category and what's going to happen when RTDs get legalized here? Where's it? They know these folks, and that's why the 3-tier system is the backbone, I think, of this $125 billion industry that we're in today. That's kind of the way we see it.
Yeah. But then you have Celsius going to Pepsi, right? So
Okay.
is that sort of thing inevitable? I mean, the beer industry builds a brand and then the brand goes to Pepsi, which has all sorts of other implications when you talk about Pepsi, having its own blue cloud. But, is that inevitable?
So inevitable is it's more than a 2-syllable word for me. So remember, I'm just a farm boy. I'm not sure what that means. So do I think people are going to try different routes to market? Sure. Is it a share of mind? Is it a share of execution? Is it because of the partnership, the JV? I'm going to borrow your brand name. I'm going to brew it for you or make it for you. We're going to go through your network. Mm-hmm. Sure. I think there's all kinds of business rationale that would open doors for different distribution routes. All right. So that's the first part. The blue cloud piece, make no mistake about it. Whether you're a distiller or a vintner or a carb soft drink company, a bottled water company, a health and wellness tea company, you look at the size of the prize of just beer alone. Let's, what we say, 125 billion US, I think, everything combined, 125, 130 billion. Don't you want a piece of that? Sure, I do. Because my job as a CEO of a soft drink company or of an Ocean Spray, or you pick the company, Coca-Cola, my job every 90 days is to increase the value of my company to shareholders. How do I do that? Well, I can eliminate costs. I can increase efficiencies. I can bring more folks into my portfolio. I can find new avenues of revenue. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. And believe me, there's nothing wrong with the Coke network. There's nothing wrong with the PepsiCo network. They do a great job at distributing where their core strengths are. I think people are trying different routes to market to see what's more beneficial or has a greater return on investment for them.
And if you play this forward a little bit and you go with the analogy that the assumption that we believe legislative avenues will open up more channels of trade to things, if you follow that to its conclusion, you wind up having a wider variety of products sold within the same type of accounts. Whenever you have that, ultimately the retailer doesn't need 3 or 4 different trucks coming there. They're largely warehoused and handled the same. They're rotated the same and cared for inside the account the same. So I think over the next, I used to say 10 years, I think it's probably 5 or less now. I think it's inevitable that you see those products on one truck. We already have large wholesalers on the Molson Coors side of things that are already heavily aligned with Coke. We have other wholesalers on the Molson Coors side who are heavily aligned with Pepsi. So these relationships already exist.
So that kind of begs the question about consolidation, right? I think, Bump, you mentioned you're seeing M&A as imminent, right? So what are the drivers of all the M&A, right? And especially in an economy right now that's so laden with inflation, what's the pace going to be like in the back half of the year and maybe even into next year, do you guys think?
This is one of those times where I'm supposed to make the disclaimer that these are my own conscious opinions and not those representative Arlington Capital and our affiliates, all the FINRA folks and all that. So I don't have a clue. But my own opinion of things, really, and we've talked about this before, M&A follows the consumer because it follows growth. And when you have high, consistent growth and excitement around a category like craft was growing year over year over year, double digit, and you have large players that were unable to really effectively create brands of their own, they acquire. When you add things like you said, CO2 shortages, aluminum shortages, inflation, rising cost of capital, international wars, the markets hate uncertainty. So it's not that M&A won't still be robust, but I think it will happen through a different set of lenses. These markets shift all the time. You hear about a buyer's market, a seller's market, but it always boils down to what is something worth to the person doing the acquiring. And it's not worth a penny more or a penny less. And what is worth nothing to someone could be worth a whole lot to someone else because it's strategically important for them to achieve their goals whatever those may be. That could be needing capacity in the US if you're an overseas brand, or it could be economies of scale because you're already delivering a lot of stuff to the same store and there's no need to take 2 or 3 trucks there. I think it'll continue to be robust, but I think the partnerships will look a lot more creative than they were in the past. They'll be structured a lot more creatively. And I think you'll find likely bedfellows that down the road that people wouldn't have necessarily put together a few years ago. And, I think, I'm a little bit biased because we did the deal, but I think the Sapporo Stone deal surprised people quite a lot. And I think a lot of people scratched their head about what was that all about until they peeled back the onion and figured out that was a really great thing for both parties because they each had something the other one needed. And that's the type of things we like to be involved in. Help people collectively solve both of their problems. Even though we're technically representing one side of the aisle, the only kind of deal to do is the one that works well for everybody, or don't do it at all.
I mean, JB always makes great points. I want to add just one comment on this one is you talk about like a single point of delivery. Retailers are already asking for that one. They don't want trucks cluttering. I know you guys have written a lot about this. You don't want trucks cluttering up my convenience store when I'm stopping for my coffee. You don't want that. But it already happens in other industries. And again, we can't think so narrow-minded or myopically that we forget what's going on in other parts of consumer packaged goods. I mean, big pharma companies have a single delivery that puts competitive products in the same truck. Maybe it's via a McKesson, right? You've got HBC, health and beauty care companies that use the same truck to deliver to stores. You've got brokers that are out there selling salty snacks and confections in the same truck. They compete with one another at the checkout. You've got NA beverages, non-alcoholic beverages that use the same type of distribution network, even though I know Perrier is going to compete against Ozark, LaCroix, or against another brand up in the Northeast. It happens already. Why would we think that we're immune to that type of distribution change? Because we're not. And some of the most successful strategic partners that we work with, they look at what goes on outside of their beverage, or their beer world, or their beverage alcohol world, and they talk to the Hershey's of the world about flavor innovation, or they talk to the Ocean Sprays of the world about health and wellness. They talk to other companies about how have you guys innovated so that you protect your core brands, you successfully launch flanker brands, you're taking advantage of where the consumer wants to go. You add your value to your consumer, you add value to the retail partner, you add value to your distributor network, you add value to your shareholders. That's what successful companies are doing. They're talking to the Procters and Gambles and Unilevers about distribution synergies. How do we do a better job of eliminating waste? I talk to food delivery companies. How do you guys do that and make sure the right products in the right store at the right time and still make money? So we're not alone in our struggle with SKUs, our brand proliferation, or rising cost of fuel, or trying to get a CDL driver, or trying to get people to show up to work, not even on time, just show up. And then other companies are suffering through this. They found solutions. Why wouldn't we want to tap into that type of synergies? And this is where the values that JB and I think my company can add is we work with people across all of CPG. It's not just a beverage world that we work in. We'll work with a Procter or a J&J or a Unilever. And that's kind of where I think our added value comes into play when people talk to us about how do we handle this situation.
In beer distribution in particular, historically, the brewers have thought that an exclusive distribution network adds value. And that's why it's a franchise system rather than a delivery system. You own the franchise and it has value. And we talk about, fewer trucks, and I think the wine and spirits distributors have had an advantage because there's just so few of them that if you're a new brand coming in, you're like, well, hell, I can cover the whole country with 2 distributors and I don't have to have all these 400 points of distribution. On the other hand, beer distributors build brands better. They go into C stores. They make the accounts more often. So that's the trade-off. Why do you guys think, and this is off script, but why do you guys think that that Sazerac made the decision to go from RNDC to the local beer distributors, Columbia and Eagle Rock in Colorado and Washington State, rather than stay with RNDC, which shares ownership with Sazerac's ownership. Does anybody have an opinion on that?
So the answer is yeah. I mean, this is my opinion. You bring up a good example, but we know Stefanci, we know the Meritage Group, we know the Economos family. And when it comes to business strategies on what's the right way to say it? Becoming more efficient, becoming more profitable, share of execution, share of mind. Maybe it's retail penetration, maybe it's brand awareness, maybe it's an investment on Columbia or on the Economos family in terms of people or training, or this is your class of trade. I just think that they're trying something brand new with these two distributors who are at the top of the list when it comes to, I think, business acumen.
Right.
I mean, Harry, why not do it across the country? Why just pick Pac Northwest and Colorado? I think they picked two people.
Well, it's an interesting choice. You know, I honestly, Harry, I was so asleep at the wheel. I'm not even fully aware that that had gone down. So I don't have a great answer for it. But when you think about it on the surface, it is interesting that they chose a silver and blue lane in one part of the country and a red lane in another part of the country in areas that are very influential. I mean, think about it. I know this is a big stretch and we've already gone off script, but like cannabis is legal in both areas and has been for a really long time. You know, the tiers have opened up a lot in those areas in terms of the areas that products can be purchased in terms of C-store and grocery store. Colorado's been catching up to that now. And my guess is it wasn't an emotional decision of who I have financial ties to. It was a practical freaking business decision as to who is going to get my product in front of the most people so I can grow the most share. Because that's really what it's all about at the end of the day.
Right.
But I don't have a clue. That's my short answer. Not even my ganja-soaked opinion has a clue.
Well, I have a call. I have a call into Bill because I just seen him and spent some time with him just a couple of weeks ago. So hopefully he can. I have my own opinion. I think you're right. Washington. One thing about Washington and Colorado is that there are weird channel restrictions, and Jordan and I have noticed that they have come out with a Fireball that's malt based, and it showed up in grocery and C stores here in Texas everywhere. And you know, that's
we were
beer.
talking about it today.
Yeah. And I think that's probably a huge product for them. I mean, huge displays in HEB, and $1 a nip, right? $1 a nip, right? You get 20 of them for $19.99 in a bucket, right? Jordan bought like 5 buckets, and he's been drunk ever since.
I left him with Harry. But yeah, no, I was going to ask y'all, what are your thoughts of having spirits-based as well as malt-based versions of brands? I mean, we know Boston's about to do it with Truly. Obviously, Sazerac's doing it with Fireball. Is this a trend we'll see more of, and can you do it without eventually causing mass confusion?
Yeah, so think about Jack and Coke. Great question. You've got malt based and you're going to have spirits based. Think about Malibu, the Malibu Splash and the Malibu spirits based product. Tanqueray, they're all out there. Why not do it? When we look at some of the most successful new brands launched in the spirits based RTD segment, most of the winners have a well-known spirits brand attached to it. Why not leverage all that brand equity that you've spent hundreds of millions of dollars building and getting it into the hands of a new consumer? It makes perfect sense to me.
It begs the question, though, and you guys have written about this. You know, there was class action suits legally against ABI on the Ritas. Y'all announced one today against, interestingly, Coca-Cola with Topo Chico franchise and all that. You know, I wonder, you know, how that litigation will all wrap up, and does it strike a confusing note with the consumer if it doesn't have that alcohol spirit-based product in it? I don't know. I think that's a TBD, but I do believe that the consumer doesn't really care. At the core, I don't think they care, whether it's malt-based or wine-based or spirits-based or whatever. I think it's more of a brand connection and a health and wellness, better for you benefit cue as to why they make those choices. It's occasion based, what they're going to be doing for that occasion. I think it's way less about the base alcohol that gives it its benefit, or the benefit they're looking for.
Think about, and Jordan, Jabe and I talked, we went to a couple stores today, and we talked to the beverage manager of a pretty good size chain. And we said, hey, where's your RTD section? He goes, oh, we've got them all down aisle 8, everything. We started off at malt-based, we went down to spirits-based, and then we were asking about wine-based products. They go, oh, that's at the other end of the store. That's at the very, go down the end, I'll take a left, it's at the end of the store.
But it's all RTD to the consumer. It's
Right.
a ready-to-drink beverage.
And we asked this retailer, what goes through them? What do you see going on? Do you see people coming in and simply picking up a Truly, or do they pick up a Truly and a Cutwater? Do they pick up a Lone River Ranch water, and do they pick up a Beatbox? They don't know what RTD means. Consumers and Harry,
Right.
I will send you guys an RTD study. We just finished with consumers. It's not ready for prime time yet, or I'd share it with you, but we're going to polish it up. I'll send it to
Neither
you.
are we.
But, that's true. That's true. But the consumers, to JB's point, they don't care. They don't care about ABV, because I've got a spirits-based RTD at 4.5% competing with a spirits-based RTD at double-digit strength versus a 6% or a 5.5% malt-based. They don't care. All they cared about was it in stock? Was it the right flavor? Was it the right package? And do I like the flavor? Do I like the taste of it? That's how they're buying. Price never came into play. And that's the part that shocked us. It was like number 7 on this decision tree process of RTD purchases.
That was surprising.
Price,
That was surprising given the economy and inflation and things like that. They still just don't seem to really care. If it's something they want and it satisfies the occasion and desire they're looking for, they pay for it.
They don't know about spirits, malt, or wine. They just don't know.
I
Right.
mean, I was at a family dinner last night with a bunch of nieces and nephews in their 20s and 30s, and it's we started talking about hard seltzers, and flavor was all anybody wanted to talk about. I like this flavor. I don't like that flavor. Oh, I won't drink that one at all, but I love this one. And nobody talked about the base, the cost, anything. And they were talking like High Noon and White Claw interchangeably. They don't differentiate, right?
That's right.
And I was going to ask, how much of High Noon's success is owed to its actual spirits base versus it just not being lost in a sea of malt-based competitors?
I think it's more of the latter, what you just said.
And I also think it's smart. It goes back to what Jen had asked. We've got a wine company that saw the volume of wine being pretty much stagnant, if not down a little bit. And the wine company, I mean, everybody knows High Noon's made by Gallo. So
Right.
Gallo's looking at this saying, wait a minute, I'm in the wine industry only, but I know that my wine drinkers don't just drink my wine, they drink other things too. I look at this RTD, I look at the impact of flavors, I'm looking at these beautiful packages, these aluminum packages. I got to get into that. Let's get into that spirit. So there's that crossing of lines from a vintner into spirits or distilling. That's the way the future is going to be going. That goes back to what Jen had asked earlier, Harry had asked earlier about it. This, are these companies going to take a bigger bite out of beer? Absolutely, because not everybody drinks the same product all the time. Anyway, so.
Yeah. Well, I'm exclusively a Buzzballs drinker now, and that's wine based. You can get
That
it any.
explains a lot, Harry.
Yeah,
Yeah, they got spirits-based ones now too.
yeah. And do you think the consumer is looking at their Buzzballs ingredients, saying, "I'm not buying this one. It's wine based. I want spirits based Buzzballs."
You gotta open that thing with like a can opener.
I've got one around here. Oh, it's right there. Can you see it on the table there?
I can see it glowing in the dark over there. Yeah.
So I just wanted to try a bunch of those. These are all sold in C-stores right at the point of purchase. It's brilliant. And, it's funny because, AB tried this years ago and they got ran out of town by the AGs with Spikes. Same thing. Exact same thing. But
We got a short memory for some of this litigation stuff. It's coming back up again, and I wonder what the level of tolerance will be these days as it's more broadly accepted by consumers. It seems like, I don't know what the legislative point of view on it's going to be.
that's a great question, because I've been like sounding the alarm, but I come from a different age, and people are like, Harry, cannabis is legal in 20 states. Like, it's a different world. I'm not sure that that people do care, but we'll certainly see.
Yeah.
I think it's flying pretty close to the sun. Consumer, like you said. Jordan, go ahead. I've talked over you.
Well, Jen had a question for y'all, asking what the industry would look like in 5 years. I kind of want to change that and just ask, do you still see Modelo Especial growing in 5 years? When do you think that growth finally slows down?
When they're out of stock.
Damn.
Good answer. No, we were talking about that, about the things that we thought would drive growth over the next few years. And certainly I think the Mexican imports are going to remain to be juggernauts there. I think they're going to have a pretty big run still for a while.
Juggernauts.
Juggernaut.
He's on potato. He's on the East Coast. Well, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and just jumping off that question, I mean, it looks like Constellation's poised to pass Molson Coors as the second largest brewer in the not so distant future. Will that mark any sort of monumental shift in distributors or retailers' mindset once that happens?
I don't know the answer to that, but my guess is I believe that for some time, Constellation has probably already been a more influential player than a lot of the Molson Coors brands have. If you just look at the sheer amount of profitability and velocity that they bring with such a fewer amount of SKUs.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't matter the ranking. I mean, I think the Constellation has kind of been the belle of the ball for a while inside those houses, and that the position just seems to be strengthening. But look, I mean, number 2, number 3, whatever, they're both still very, very large, very influential players that are very important to those distributors. You number 2 or number 3, is it really going to change that much inside? I don't really think so. I mean, both of them command a heck of a lot of attention inside those houses, as they should. They bring a disproportionate amount of the profitability and the volume.
I'm of the opinion that when that does happen in scan data in dollars, it won't have an effect on distributors because they already know. Yeah. But I think some retailers, because they have so much churn in the buyers that may be kind of new to the industry, the psychological effect would be like, oh, well, this should be a category captain. They're the number 1 high-end brewery, or I don't know. I'm just talking out of my ass.
That's an interesting point, though. Will it create a significant shift in who's controlling the mouse, as they say in those schematics? That'll be interesting to see.
Right.
I think that Constellation, again, they've got their own problems with the Mexican government that I think they'll remedy that, but I don't know what that's going to do short term in this year with inventory. I know there's been a lot of inventory challenges, but I think they've done a much better job than anybody else at managing price points and managing probably distributor relationships. I'm going to put an asterisk on that one, but price points for sure. It's a lot easier for a retailer to handle a low single-digit price increase than a high single-digit, low double-digit price increase in inflationary times. And I think that's yeah. I mean, and I think too about Jim Sabia. I mean, Bob Lackey to me is the best. He's at the very top when it comes to marketing genius. Let me tell you something. Jim Sabia is a close second, and Lackey's not in the business anymore. At least
and just for our listeners, Lackey was famously the chief commercial officer at Anheuser-Busch for many years, and he came out with iconic like Bud, Weiser, and What's Up, and I Love You Man, and Great American Heroes, among others. Okay, go ahead.
Switch the subject, Jordan.
And Dr. Galakowicz.
Anything to get Harry to stop singing.
Yes, I am. But
I have no control.
Anyway, he's done a phenomenal job, and I think they're taking advantage of demographic shifts in the United States. I think they've garnered more shelf space. I think there's plenty of room for distribution gains for Modelo Especial, certainly for Pacifico. Corona Extra continues to grow, and it's a monster brand.
I mean,
this is a brand
they've definitely earned the mouse, but as you guys know, things always go more slowly, and there's a psychological thing. But I would say they've earned it, control, and like you said, if they can make the beer, and it's just anathema to me. I feel like either they got screwed over or they mismanaged it or both. But to not have water rights, to already spend that much money on a brewery, and then they just got water rights like 2 weeks ago for the other brewery that they've been building, and hopefully that gets, hopefully, because the president of Mexico said we will not make beer in northern Mexico. I'm sure that's a surprise to their brewery in Nava. I mean,
Hard
shit.
to make beer without water.
Well, I mean, that brewery in Nava, I believe, is the largest brewery in the world.
I believe it was at the time it was built, and I hadn't heard of a bigger one yet.
Yeah. I think that one and the Coors Brewery in Golden are probably the two single largest, because, Coors couldn't build another brewery for so long because Bill Coors thought the water was special. I don't know. It's just snow melt. It's actually probably got more bacteria in it than well water does.
Come on, don't go knocking my Rocky Mountain spring water, Harry.
Okay. All right, JV. Well, Jordan, we gonna let these fellas go? Are y'all taking the rest of the week off probably?
You mean month?
Yeah.
You're a funny man, Harry.
I mean, it is August. It's like, I thought about, emailing some of my friends in Europe, and I remembered that they're all off.
That is true.
The whole month.
Nobody goes on holiday like the Europeans, man. They don't mess around. Like everybody goes. And when they say they're on holiday, they freaking mean it. I love that.
They do. Everything's off. All right. Well,
thanks. Good holiday.
I really appreciate you guys. It's always great having you on, and great insights as usual. And I appreciate you. And I'll Bump, I look forward to seeing you in where, KC or somewhere?
Kansas City. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're coming down to the Breakers to see you in January, right?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yes. Yeah. And I want to talk to you two offline later about that as well. So
cool.
All right,
we
guys.
can grab a beverage in Chicago at NBWA too.
Yep. I'll be there too. I'll be there.
Okay. And guys, just so all our viewers don't think we're rude, Jen had to drop, but we didn't just ignore
I should acknowledge that yes, Jen had another more important.
So we tuned in for Jen.
Not for us.
No,
I know.
But give Jen our best, and Jordan and Harry, thank you guys for making the time to chat with us. We always love catching up with you guys, and good stuff.
Thank y'all. Great talking to y'all as always.
Thank you guys.